Recently, I had a number of different people ask me how I would grow my Turo fleet if money was no issue. Basically, if I had an unlimited budget, how would I go about growing and scaling my fleet? What would I do differently, or what would I do the same? And while I have in the past made videos talking about what I would do if I was starting Turo today, I haven't talked about what I would do in the context of having an unlimited or a very large budget. And while if you are somebody who is wanting to get started with Turo today and you don't have an unlimited budget, this video is going to be great, but I also think you should check out my previous video talking about this subject as well. I have a link to that down in the description below. In this video, I am going to be talking about what I would potentially do differently if money wasn't really an object, or at least wasn't an object at the time that I started this business. And so how would I start my Turo fleet if money wasn't an object or it wasn't as much of an issue? The truth is there's a lot that I wouldn't change, but there are a few things that I probably would do differently. But before we dive into that, I do want to let you guys know that the sale with the car sharing masterclass has been extended until January 31st, and you can currently use the code NEWYEAR2024 to get $150 off the purchase of the course. This course goes over everything A to Z on how to start and scale a car sharing fleet with the same business model that I use, and in the course you'll learn how to buy cars, how to determine which ones are the right ones to buy, and how to buy the low market value. You'll learn how to communicate with guests, address issues, and get 5 stars. And of course, we'll teach you what to do in the case that your car is in an accident or is deemed a total loss, as well as everything in between. On top of that, whenever you sign up for the course, not only do you get access to 7 hours of course content, but you'll also gain access to our private Discord and our monthly Zoom calls as well. So if you want to check that out, you can do so by checking out the link down in the description below and using the code NEWYEAR2024 to get $150 off. Now back to the video. So now you want to start a Turo fleet and money isn't an option. What is the best course of action here? Is it to buy 20 cars, 50 cars, 100 cars? Over the years, I've spoken to thousands of car sharing hosts that are just getting started with Turo. And the majority of people that I speak to are in kind of the bootstrap phase, a similar position that I was in whenever I got started. They don't have a ton of money to work with. They're buying their first car. They're either saving for that or they're financing it, and they're growing slowly but surely with the cash flow that the business makes. This is the majority of people that I talk to with Turo, and in my opinion, the majority of people that get started in this business. But recently, I have been seeing more and more people who kind of fit into 2 different categories. A person who has recently sold their previous business, and as a result, they have a ton of money to work with, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Or someone who has a really good corporate job, they're making 6 figures, and as a result, they have maybe 50 to 100 grand to invest. And for the second and third groups of people that I just mentioned, the people with a lot of money to work with, here are some of the things that I recommend to them on how they can grow their fleet in a really sustainable and successful way. So operationally speaking, when it comes to car sharing, I wouldn't change a thing. There is nothing that I would do differently today or in the past that I would if I had 100 grand to work with at the start. I would do remote key exchanges. I would get an offsite lot. I would locate the business out of my house to begin with, and I would never meet guests in person. This to me, for a successful Turo fleet, regardless of startup cost, is a non-starter. I think that these are things that you should absolutely embrace if you want to have longevity in car sharing. But more common in the operational side of things is the question of like, how many cars should you buy and how many is too many to start with? I was recently talking to somebody who had just sold their previous business, and as a result, this person had a lot of money to work with. And he asked me if I thought it would be a good route for him to grow as fast as possible to 100 cars on Turo. And my answer was a resounding no. And I think regardless of budget, the most amount of cars that you should start with at the very beginning is 5 cars. This is what I tell my course members. It's what I tell anyone in this position. And this is because you wouldn't want to start your very first business as an entrepreneur with $1 million. And so you also wouldn't want to start your Turo fleet with 20 cars, let alone 100. Operating a Turo fleet certainly isn't rocket science, but there is a learning curve to everything. Cleaning cars, handling claims, communicating with guests, maintenance, repairs. These are all things and tasks that go up as you grow. The workload for your fleet goes up as your fleet grows. And I've talked about this before on my channel, but I feel as though it was very, very easy to manage my fleet up until about 12 cars. Like, I would go as far as to say as it was borderline effortless. Of course, it did take work, but for me, I was able to adapt to that work extremely easily. But whenever I hit 12 cars, that's whenever I started to have some growing pains. And I noticed that at this point in time, the repairs and maintenance on my cars were getting more and more difficult to keep up with. And as a result, I would have a lot of cars out and sitting for extended periods of time as they waited for repairs to be done. I knew at this point in time that something needed to change, and so as a result, this was around the time that my husband HP quit his job to work for our fleet full time. He was able to straighten out the operations, get everything running smoothly, and then we noticed once again, whenever we hit about 25 cars, HP was getting stretched into too many directions, and that was our indicator that we needed to hire a part-time employee. And that's just the labor side of things. You still have parts, communications, reimbursement. A process needs to be developed to keep up with all of these different facets, and that process would be very, very hard to develop if you started with 20 cars. It would be like trying to learn how to swim in the ocean. And so whenever it comes to car count, my recommendation is to start with 5. Get your footing, make sure that the cars are getting rented out, refine your process a bit, and then whenever you feel comfortable or whenever you feel ready, go and get the next 5, and then just kind of basically rinse and repeat that. You'll eventually get to the point where you don't have to grow in 5 car increments and you may be able to grow in 10 car increments. Or you might get to the point where you say to yourself, okay, I think I'm done. I think that this is a good amount of cars where I have a good amount of work and I'm making good money. I just think all the way around starting with 20, 30, 40 cars, I think it's a mistake. But of course, there's also the factor of what type of car would I buy. And truthfully, there isn't a whole lot that I would change on the types of cars that I purchased in the past versus the ones that I would purchase if budget wasn't an option. I would still buy below market value, depreciated, economical cars. I would focus on a variety of these vehicles, and truthfully, they would be very similar to the cars I own now. Lower mileage, well-kept Mercedes. My 2011 Volvo is a car that I've really grown to love, and I would buy another one in a heartbeat. Hyundai Sonatas, Mazdas. I would have a variety of everything, but a real focus on broad appeal. So compact cars, SUVs like Ford Escapes or Hyundai Tucsons, minivans. I would probably eventually throw in some 6,000-pound cars in there as well for tax purposes. But not at the beginning, because you're already getting so many deductions from these cheaper non-6,000-pound cars. There are cars that I regret buying in my fleet, like my Kia Rio or my Honda Civic. But there are no cars that I regret buying that I bought purely because they were all I could afford. I've never purchased a garbage car just because it's cheap. We find good cars that are cheap and we buy them because they're good cars. And so even as my own budget and my own cash flow situation has improved over the years, I haven't changed the cars that I buy. I buy the same cars that I always purchased, I just buy newer versions due to Turo requirements. And though I would buy the same cars if budget wasn't an issue, I admit that I would buy these cars faster. I've said before that my growth right now, which is like 8 to 10 cars per year, is pretty much as fast as I want to grow. And while this is the truth, in the first 4 years of my fleet, I grew to 12 cars. If I had an unlimited budget, I probably would have grown to 12 cars in the first year. So the speed of growth would have been faster at the start, but it most likely would have ended up leveling off. Lastly, and truthfully, giving this advice is creating more competition for myself, but if I was getting started with Turo today with no background experience in Turo, especially if budget wasn't an issue, I would absolutely start a YouTube channel documenting my journey of growing my Turo fleet quickly, which is exactly what I've done with my own fleet. I think starting a YouTube channel or a TikTok or Instagram documenting your Turo growth is so smart because it allows for you to diversify your income off of stuff that you are already doing anyways. Even though I know that there are a lot of Turo creators out there nowadays, not everyone, including myself, is everybody's cup of tea, and there's always new perspectives and pieces of information that you can gather from people that are just joining the game today. And so if you're wanting to grow your Turo fleet, regardless of whether or not budget is an issue, if you have the means to do it, I would 1000% recommend picking up a camera and recording your journey in the process. Starting this YouTube channel was one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life. So in summary, if I started my Turo fleet today and budget wasn't an issue at all, I would still do remote key exchanges and I would operate out of my house until I had 30 to 35 cars. I would buy the same cars, but I would buy them quicker, and I would document the entire process on YouTube. And on top of all of that, I would make sure to invest in the right tools right off the bat. Make sure to get a good accountant and a good bookkeeper. I have the link to mine down in the description below. I absolutely love them. Basically, if you had no budget, I definitely wouldn't skimp on those areas and make your life easier and make your life run more smooth. That is often a forgotten piece of the Turo puzzle. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.